Jim, Chris, thanks for taking time to answer a few questions for the PGAs of Europe for us. Jim, my first question is, if you had a group of coaches in a room and you asked them to talk about the plane of the golf swing, I guess you'd get a myriad of answers. What would be your take on the plane of the golf swing?
Yes, you certainly would. I believe there are two general ways, two general categories that you swing the golf club. Either your arms and clubs swing somewhat up from address and onto the same plane as your body moves, or they don't. Your arms and clubs swing upward from address and onto a distinctly different plane than your body turns. Now, I happen to call those one and two plane swings. One plane is where your arms swing more around you as you pivot. Two plane swings would swing more up and down. Simply put, a European golfers, if you will, Rory McIlroy would be very much one plane, say Colin Montgomery would be or Ian Poulter would be very much two plane. Now, those two swing methods or categories of general golf swings produce very different downswings. The two plane swing is going to be a more upright downswing and is going to be more on the left arm plane, and the one plane is going to be a flatter or more rounded downswing and is going to come in more on the right arm or shaft plane. So when I draw plane lines between those two, the shaft plane at address line is where we're trying to return the one plane golfer to, and the plane line that actually Hogan drew in his book, which is from the golf ball up through the shoulders, is certainly more representative of a more upright two-plane golf swing. So the two really aren't trying to achieve the same plane line, and a lot of golfers will somewhat hit between those two plane lines as well. So each swing method has a little bit different plane line.
Right. Okay. Thanks very much. Chris, you've experienced some amazing results with Matt Kuchar. Could you talk us a little bit through how and what the changes you made when he came to you?
Yeah, Matt was a good driver when he came to me, but wasn't a good iron player. Didn't hit enough greens, and when he did hit greens, didn't hit it close enough to the hole to give him a realistic chance for birdie. If you're not inside, say, 20 feet or 15 feet, if you're over 20 feet away from the hole, most likely you're going to two-putt. So you need to hit the ball closer to the hole. So what we did for Matt was his swing, his impact was too sweepy. He would swing too much down his target line, and it was too sweepy, which a sweepy swing when it's teed up works just great, and you can drive the ball well, but your iron game, you tend to not hit the ball high enough, and you don't tend to spin the ball enough. So actually, a lot of people think we flattened Matt's swing. We actually steepened his impact. His golf swing is flat. It's a one-plane swing, which looks flat to a lot of people. Him being 6'4" looks especially flat. But we steepened the impact, and we got him to hit more to the left so that he would swing from inside to inside instead of swinging so much at his target. But by doing that, the impact, when you swing more to the left, you get more of a downward blow, and the ball will actually ride up the face, and you'll get a higher launch, and you'll get more spin on the ball. More spin means that when it hits the green on the PGA Tour, the greens are awful firm, so you need to spin the ball to hold the ball on the green, especially on a Sunday, because the greens get firmer throughout the week. So the big thing was, I didn't make him a better driver so much. I made him a much better iron player and gave him more birdie chances. And then when he did miss greens, his misses were better. He would tend to miss too much to the left, was a shot that he hated, and when he swung at his target, the club face would be closed relative to the direction of the swing. It'd be much like table tennis if you were hitting more of a forehand, which will tend to make the ball hook too much. It'll tend to make it spin from right to left. So by getting him actually swinging more in the direction that he hated missing to the left, we actually got the club, if anything, during the hit, the club was coming more into him, which, if anything, puts a slight cut on the ball. Prior to working together, during the collision, his club head was traveling away from him during the hit, which just put the hook spin on it.
Okay. Thank you. Jim, I think it would be fair to say that you're more associated with the one-plane golf swing. I know you've looked into it over the years, but I also know that you're very familiar with two-plane golf swinging. Could you talk us through those two different swing categories?
Well, I do. I appreciate your saying that, because it's too bad I'm more associated with the one-plane swing, because half of everything I've written, and certainly half of my life, is spent in two-plane golf as well. My mentor was John Jacobs, and John, early on in his training of me, talked about that his preferred method was to swing more in two planes, where the arms and club swung in a more vertical plane than the body turned. Or I could put it the other way around, the body turned in a more horizontal plane than the arms swung. And one night over dinner, I asked John, I said, relative to what we do, the arms swinging in a more vertical plane than the body turned, what would you say Ben Hogan did? And John just kind of laughed, and he said, well, I'd say he threw the whole mess into more one plane. And that was really the birth of that terminology for me, and what I wrote was really John's vocabulary on it. And I always thought that was very appropriate, because that described more what, say, a Hogan or an Ian Woosnam, or as I'd mentioned earlier, Rory McIlroy certainly, or an Olazabal certainly appeared that what they did is the whole thing got thrown into the same plane, as certainly versus, say, as I'd mentioned earlier, Colin Montgomery or Ian Poulter or Severiano Ballesteros during his great period, or Tom Watson, where it's very distinctly two different planes between the arms and club swing and the body turn.
I think a lot of people, we're known as one-plane instructors, but we actually teach a lot of two-planers, amateurs, but now we also teach Stuart Sink now, who is a total two-planer, and you can win major championships and you can get in the Hall of Fame as a two-planer. We certainly don't think two-plane golf is wrong. I think just people have been attracted to us because they're natural one-planers, and their swing style fits our teaching, whereas they have been to other teachers who maybe favor more of a two-plane swing, and they weren't comfortable with those changes. So I think one-planers are drawn to us, people that have been told they have more rounded or flatter golf swings.
Chris, there's been a lot more technology involved in coaching recently. Can you talk us through what technology you use in coaching and what lines you would draw to do video analysis of swings?
Yeah, Jim was talking earlier about the left arm plane and the right arm plane, and on the video here we've got Matt Kuchar on the left, who's very one-plane golf swing, and we've got Stuart Sink over there on the right. And on the left is basically drew the shaft plane at address. And what I'm wanting Matt to do is to find the golf ball with the right arm. You can see the right forearm there's pointed right at the golf ball. Matt finds the golf ball more with the right arm. Stuart over there on the right is that's more Ben Hogan's plane line that he drew, the plane of glass that went from just inside the ball up through the shoulders. You can see Stuart is finding the ball with a totally different arm. He's finding it with the left arm. Now, Stuart's arms are more in front of his body. Matt's arms are more behind his body. A one-planer, the arms swing more behind the body, and you deliver the club with the arms to the right side of the torso. The two-planer keeps the arms more in front of the body and finds the ball with the arms more in front of his torso.
I might say it's interesting there that Hogan was the first one that talked about plane and a plane line or something, and the line he drew is in fact not the line that he swung on. Hogan swung on, tried to bring the club back down to the shaft plane line. And so his plane line is actually a very different line than one up on the shoulders, which in fact he showed. The one that he showed actually fits the two-plane golfer. But to his credit, he kept saying that he wanted to swing underneath that shoulder plane line, that what we now call a two-plane or left arm line. And he certainly did in fact swing well underneath that plane line.
Okay, and Chris, do you use any other technology other than video?
We use a little bit of video, not a lot. I'm more important. We learn three ways. We learn kinesthetically, verbally, and visually. And I can show somebody what they're doing wrong, and I can show them a video of, say, a tour player who does it right. But showing them what they're doing wrong doesn't mean they're going to be able, they don't know how to fix it. I'm more interested in the kinesthetic, getting the feel of it. So we're big into drills or training aids so the person can feel their mistake and feel what they're doing correct. So often we think that we don't want to rehearse our mistake, but actually you need to know what you're doing wrong to know what you're doing right. If somebody were to drop you in a plane, we're at the Wigwam Resort in Arizona. If somebody were to drop you in a plane in the middle of America and told you to go to the Wigwam Resort in Arizona, you wouldn't know whether to go north, east, south, or west. They would have to tell you where you are. So we need to know where we are is a fault, and then we also need to know what we want to do correct. But the kinesthetic is much more powerful for me in getting somebody to change their golf swing. We're a little bit old school, John Jacobs style, where we're trying to, our goal is to correct the ball flight and the impact. And sometimes, although the science can help and different things like launch monitors and stuff like that can certainly help us be correct, sometimes we get a little lost in too much information, I think, when we get technology. And really what we're trying to do is get the ball going better.
Yeah. Jim, earlier this year your book was released, Solid Contact, talks in depth about the plus and minuses of impact. Could you talk us through a little bit about your coaching philosophy behind that book?
Well, Chris started touching on it right there. I paraphrase a quote of John Jacobs in which John said, "The sole purpose of the golf swing is to produce a correct impact. The method employed is of little significance as long as it is repetitive." I've paraphrased that to say that the sole purpose of what we're doing is to produce a correct, repetitive impact. Now, those two things are very different. I can produce a correct impact, but it might be repetitive, and we certainly all are familiar with the golfer who produces a repetitive impact that isn't correct. And the real trick is to get a correct, repetitive impact. Now, I don't care, to be honest with you, if the golfer looks like Rory McIlroy or Jim Furyk or Bubba Watson or Jack Nicklaus or Gary Player or Lee Trevino or Arnold Palmer. I mean, everybody has a style that is going to fit what they've grown up doing and playing golf and how they can athletically find that impact. And so I'm not about wildly changing styles. I'm about taking the golfer, particularly as he's a better player, and getting that golfer to produce a correct repetitive impact with the style he has. I don't believe Ben Hogan ever changed his style. He simply refined it, so he quit hitting that low darting hook and he quit hitting a lot of fat and thin shots to where his style was producing a correct repetitive impact. Same with Jack Nicklaus or Tom Watson or Lee Trevino. And I think too much of our coaching and teaching today is centered around swing shape rather than centered around ball flight and impact. And once we get centered around swing shape, we all of a sudden start saying that our prejudice of how we like to see a golf swing look must be the correct way. If that's true, then we've got a lot of great players that owe an apology and need to give their money back because they didn't do it that way. And our philosophy at Plain Truth is more to educate instructors and golfers towards what they need to do within their own style to get a more correct and repetitive impact. And that's what that third book I just wrote is, called Solid Contact, is all about. I believe that if you have solid contact and it's repetitive, that you can plan your round of golf. If you don't have a solid hit, I don't know how you plan a round of golf, because you can be 180 yards from the green and you don't know whether it's a 5-iron, a 6-iron, or whether it's a 3-wood, for goodness sakes. And you don't know where to aim if you can't hit it solidly and with a predictable ball flight. So before we worry about strategy on the golf course, we need to have a solid repetitive impact, and now we can play strategy, and now we can start playing how the game should be played.
Thanks very much, guys. Thanks for taking time out to talk to us, and look forward to working with you in future years.
Kevin, thank you. I'm grateful for this opportunity to be able to really express what we do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.